Welcome to this grand finale of the Crypto Adoption Week. We will today have a Nordic presentation of all the different country findings and compare them to each other. And we will also have a discussion with two different panels, one which is focused on the industry, but we will also explore how this industry also is right now influencing nearby industries like digital assets, on tokenization, stablecoins, and so on. So where does this go going further? And we will first welcome to the stage the partners of this industry survey, as well as this live event. I'm just looking for just a minute. There we have Tuk. There's a lot of people in the today, maybe we could start with you, Torbjørn, because you have been doing this survey since 2008, and why do you do it, and what is the importance of now being able to do it together with a lot of other players in the industry?
So I think as an industry, we need a shared description of reality when we have discussions with other stakeholders, whether that is banks or politicians. We need to bring facts to the table when you talk about the situation on the ground. How many participate in this? How big is this? Is this growing, etc.? And I think bringing that to the ecosystem and bringing that to the society is great to do as a joint effort, which is why it's really great to have Firi as a partner here and working with the Nordic Blockchain Association, because even though we from time to time and in certain niches have some competition, at the end of the day, this is an industry we build together, and we should build it with good practices and hard data.
Yes, and maybe you also then could explain a little about your company and why you have been joining as a partner this year. We cannot hear you, sorry.
Welcome to Groundhog Day.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, okay. It seems like there's something with my AirPods. I should probably charge them. Thank you. Yeah. So Firi, we are one of the largest cryptocurrency exchange in the Nordic region. The whole idea of building Firi was to have a place where you could buy cryptocurrencies simple and secure for everybody. And that was the mission when we started 8 years ago, and it's still the mission today. And today we have over 400,000 verified users, over 1 billion euros in annual trading volume. And the fun part of this, it's the numbers only tell like half of the story. The story of what it really represents is that hundreds of thousands of people has taken the first step into cryptocurrencies because of companies like us and many others in the Nordics. And that's like a trust that back when we started wasn't there. It was there was not many cryptocurrency exchanges at all in the Nordics. But for me, the Nordic region has always been one of the most exciting areas because I live in the Nordics. But the adoption accelerating, regulatory frameworks are maturing. Everybody talked about Mika last year. Now everybody's going through the race right now, and this is why it's important, and that's why we're also proud partners of the Nordic Crypto Adoption survey, because it highlights all the information that a lot of us has an assumption about. So going away from the speculation, but actually going into letting data insights to show us how it works across the Nordics. So we're really happy to be here together with the Nordic Blockchain Association and Kaupr, talking about all these questions everybody is asking the whole year.
Thank you very much, Tuk. And then we can hear also from you, Jakob, from the Nordic Blockchain Association, a short explanation on what it is and what you do in regard to this space.
Yes, so to begin with, we are an industry organization, existed for almost 10 years now, created by people within the industry. And I think I want to echo some of the things that both Tuk and Torbjørn said, right? Like data is key here, right? Like transparency is key. I think that's what we're advocating with the technology as well. So I really think it's important to do things like this. We operate as an organization with 3 different, let's say, verticals. One of them is things like this. So we think it's extremely important to have data. It's extremely important that the community and the ecosystem have the same benchmark, so we can use that to educate. So we do initiative for joint initiative like this, but as well do it with companies and other data sources. That's important. Then we have a lot of working groups. So as we heard in some of the previous panels, and hopefully we'll discuss later today, there's still some taxation, some legal frameworks that need to come in place. So we really try to work with these public-private, where we help educate and facilitate discussions. We do that with legal, finance, best practice. And then we do a lot of meetups and a lot of things like that. I think right now, maybe 200 plus meetups throughout the time. And we're going to have, as you can see here on screen, our 8th annual conference this year again in Stockholm, the 26th and 27th of May. And what distinguishes this conference is, of course, there's a lot of speakers. We're going to be 1,000 plus participants, 100 plus speakers, but there's going to be a lot of roundtables. We're going to have NGOs joining, public elected are joining, national banks. So really try to facilitate a really good discussion. I think the essence for us is blockchain is a strong industry. It should be even stronger in the Nordic region, and we can help create and retain talent, capital, and companies for our region, which I think is always needed. So thank you very much for 2 parties here, but as well all the other parties that have been part of this survey.
Yes, thank you very much both for Torbjørn and Tuk. And there are some other partners, Brava Finance, Kvarn, Blockpit, and Define. And all of them have then been helping out so that this survey can be done. We will now move on to the survey results. And then we will invite Vetle Runde and Magnus Jones to the stage. Just a minute, I have to just find them in the back stage. And,
I'm here.
Say hi to Jakob. But now you are on stage, guys, and you have already presented results from the 4 countries during Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and earlier today. And now it's really the final wrap-up of how it is on the Nordic level and what are the similarities and differences between the countries. So bring it on, guys.
Yes, as Morten said, this is the Nordic Crypto Adoption Survey. It combines all the data from all the Nordic countries. We have extensively presented these findings in the past few days. This is the raisin in the hot dog, as we would say in Norwegian, or the cherry on top, where we combine all our observations into aggregate data and also compare and contrast the changes seen across the independent countries. So this sets the stage both to establish a greater understanding of how big crypto has become in the Nordics, and also how crypto is faring in the various countries within the Nordic region. And this year, we did ask 8 questions to all survey respondents about cryptocurrencies. We expanded the survey compared to last year, where we asked 4 questions. This expansion has been enabled by our partnership with Firi and the Nordic Blockchain Association. This is great. We gain more insights on crypto ownership trends in the Nordics and get a better and more transparent understanding of Nordic crypto owners, which is useful for anyone involved in the industry or also anyone outside of the industry, just to digest how big the crypto has become across the Nordics. And given that we have run 4 surveys in 4 different countries using nationally representative panels, we now have more than 4,000 respondents in total for this combined survey, which should give some very good data to assess and give high validity to our observations. We have asked whether or not people own Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, if they have owned crypto in the past and sold it, what cryptocurrencies they own when they bought for the first time, if people believe that they will buy cryptocurrencies in the future, what type of products they use, what the value of their holdings are, and also which platforms they use to buy or sell cryptocurrencies. This allows us to get an informed view on the perception of crypto, current ownership structure of crypto, and also independent differences across how people trade crypto across the Nordics. I will not spend a lot of time on this slide. This is just full numbers. The report will be uploaded by us tomorrow, so you can get your hands on all the data all at once through K33 Research. It will be free and accessible to everyone. So stay tuned. For now, it's the verbal presentation, but the data will be available through us and it will always be accessible. So what we have found in the Nordics is that crypto ownership rates have increased quite substantially over the last year, from 9.6% to 11.1%. Our way of weighting crypto adoption across the countries is based on a per capita basis. Sweden has more inhabitants than the other Nordic countries, hence Swedish results weigh more than, for instance, Norwegian results. But below the chart, you will also see that I have included a simple average without weighting based on the population. And we can still see that in that regard, crypto ownership rates have grown from 10.1% in 2025 to 10.7% in 2026. So regardless of whether or not you assess these data through a weighted approach or a simple approach, we identify growth in the Nordics. What we did, however, see was huge growth in Sweden and very much variance between the different countries, with every country moving in its own separate direction. Modest growth in Denmark, strong growth in Sweden, modest decline in Norway, sharp decline in Finland. We still see that the ownership base is mostly led by young males, but last year marked a shift with more older adults entering the crypto market, and most of these older adults have stayed. So crypto is gradually becoming more commonly owned by older adults as well. These percentages translates into 2.5 million people in the Nordics owning cryptocurrencies, up from 2.18 million last year. It is a relatively huge number. You can see that crypto ownership is common, and it is telling of an industry in steady and continuous growth in terms of popularity when we look at the Nordics as a whole.
And when we look into the age groups and split it into the different sections, we see naturally that we have seen for a long time that the youth, the younger generation, are the largest parts who has crypto assets. We see here naturally that it has been a growth in the year of 40 to 49 in total, going from 12.6 to a little bit more than 15%, but also 65 plus has gone from 2.1 to 2.58%. So still, even though the others are more or less at the same level, we see a little growth in the tendency, but the curve has the shape that it has had for years in general. And the gender gap we touched upon, males are growing, going from 14.9 to just a little bit above 17% in ownership. While also females, even though we had a decline in some places like Norway, we see in total that we have had a growth going from 4.5 on average for the whole of the Nordic to 5.2 this year, which we are very happy to see. So if we look into total numbers of what we have identified, we have approximately close to 600,000 females in the Nordics who own crypto, compared to almost 2 million males. And on the comparison between stocks and shares and crypto and what you prefer to own in some matter, there, sorry, not what you prefer, but what you actually own. There we have merged together data from Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, as we didn't have access to significant enough numbers from Finland. However, in this numbering added together, we also have to take into concern that Norstat measure the respondents in different age brackets. So it means that we have below the age of 40 in two of the countries, while one of the country has 50 and plus. But still, we see when we add it together, when we say 40 and 50 year and younger, there are a significant majority who actually owns crypto there compared to stocks and shares, where we have more than 1.5 million Nordic people who owns crypto, while it is around 900,000 who owns stocks and shares. While on the other side, we see the totally opposite when it comes to 40 years and older, taking out the 50-year-old index that we got from Norstat from Sweden, but still then 1.7 million who own stocks, while close to 600,000 who owns crypto.
And looking into which cryptocurrencies that's most commonly owned by people in the Nordics, we find relatively few surprises. Bitcoin is naturally the most commonly owned crypto asset, with more than 2/3 of or roughly 2/3 of the population indicating that they own Bitcoin. This question is asked to current crypto owners. ETH is the second most owned cryptocurrency, whereas XRP and Solana follows in third and fourth place. There's also a relatively high frequency of respondents indicating that they own Dogecoin. It's been some variations in Dogecoin ownership across the Nordic countries, but in general, there seems to be a lot of activity in meme coins in Norway. And then we also find that USDT has a slightly higher usage than USDC in the Nordics, which is also consistent with USDT's relatively larger market size compared to USDC. We also find that a relatively substantial margin of the current crypto owners in the Nordics bought in the past, in this current decade. So 72% of all the Nordic crypto owners bought crypto for the first time from 2020 until today. So that also means that 28% of the current crypto owners have held and bought for the first time in the last decade. So there are some amounts of OGs in the Nordics, but the tail is definitely moving towards most crypto owners having bought in relatively recent times at prices which are relatively similar to the current prices in the market. And we also asked all the respondents whether or not they believe they will buy crypto in the future. We did see a modest decline compared to last year's figures in regards to this question. 25% of all respondents indicated that they think they will buy crypto in the next decade, which is a small decline from last year's 28%. Still, 7% of the population in the Nordics expects to buy crypto in the next year, and a further 8% expects to buy crypto within the next 3 years. So roughly 3 million people in the Nordics expects to buy crypto in the coming 3 years, which is quite a staggering figure. We attribute the overall decline in expected future purchases of crypto to the weak performing crypto sector over the last 6 months. Generally, we always see tendencies of people being very price sensitive, and prices are down, which has reduced the appetite for expecting to buy crypto in the future. Nevertheless, 25% of the population translates to 5.7 million owners, which is a very substantial amount of potential crypto owners in the Nordics in the next 10 years. And while there are relatively many people owning crypto in the Nordics, we also find that most of the Nordic crypto owners own relatively modest amounts of crypto. So nearly 60% of all of these Nordic crypto owners have invested or currently hold less than $1,000 in cryptocurrencies. And this is common across all of the Nordic countries, and we see this chart and this pattern repeat time after time whenever we compare the different countries. That said, we do see a notable increase in owners indicating that they own crypto for more than $10,000 compared to last year. So it suggests that there have emerged some whales over the past year. Taking these wealth figures together and extrapolating them through a back-of-the-envelope approach that we explain more thoroughly in written form once the report is published, we estimate the combined Nordic crypto wealth to 25.8 billion. This corresponds to 1.1% of the global crypto market cap and emphasizes that the Nordics is a highly relevant market also for crypto globally.
Looking further into comparing data for all the countries, country by country, we see that Sweden has taken over the role as the adoption leader in the Nordics, where Norway were holding that position last year with 12.3%, while Sweden now is at 13.4% with their significant growth in so matter. Of course, like we have discussed, there might be, call it, errors towards underreporting last year's while overreporting this year's. So we shouldn't take it for granted that it's that one-to-one towards the huge leap that we see here. But still, it's a significant growth in so matter. And on the other side, we see that the strongest decline has been in Finland, going from 11% to 8.2%. If we look into the actual growth or declines in de facto numbers, we see, interestingly enough, since Norway has declined with 72,000 and Sweden has grown from last year with 500,000, it means that we actually have more Swedes. The growth of Sweden last year represent more than all of the estimated crypto owners in Norway in itself one-to-one, when we don't measure it weighted towards the size of the population. Denmark has had a growth of approximately 60,000 new crypto users, while Finland has had a decline of 144,000. And when it comes to the male adoption side, we see that it's the Swedes who leads the way there also, based upon a larger population that other countries. So Sweden is leading with close to 900,000 people. Norway is at 360, Denmark 400,000, and Finland at close to 300,000. On the female side, Sweden is also leading the way. We see that Norway goes out a little higher when it comes to, call it, the weighted against population. But Denmark is then going close to Norway there, and Finland has the lowest one with 3.7%, equals to close to 87,000 Finns who has crypto on the female side. Then when we look into the female ownership ratio percentage of the total crypto ownership per country, we see that between 21 to 24% of all crypto owners in the Nordics, they are females here.
And while the female crypto ownership rate of 23% is flat compared to last year, with little variation and very strong consistency across the Nordic countries, we do see some signs of change in terms of a different demographic, namely age. So overall, across the surveys, we find that older adults are getting gradually more and more inclined to own cryptocurrencies. Among adults aged 40 to 49, roughly 14% of the population across the Nordics own crypto, and this is a relatively significant shift from past years, except last year, but it suggests that crypto is getting a gradually stronger penetration among older age cohorts. And we did see huge variations in terms of ownership rates of crypto within the various demographics last year. Like Norway and Finland had big decreases in crypto ownership, whereas Sweden had a huge growth. What we do find is that a lot of the variation in crypto ownership tends to be explained by younger adults moving in and out of crypto, with far more volatility being present in ownership data when it comes to adults aged 40 and younger than if we look at adults aged 40 and older. So this suggests that within the older age group, people tend to prioritize a more stable long-term approach to crypto markets, whereas younger adults are more in and out and more tentative to the general vibes and direction of the market. And if we look into the perception of crypto, which we try to use by gauging whether or not people expect to buy crypto in the future, we can see huge variations here as well, similar to the variations in ownership rates. Both Norway, Denmark, and Finland has experienced relatively substantial declines in the amount of people expecting to buy crypto within the next decade, whereas Sweden has seen far more enthusiasm related to crypto, with growing expectations of buying crypto in the future. So Sweden is moving opposite of the rest of the Nordic countries in this regard.
And as we heard earlier today, Norwegians, they had a clear preference towards doing their trading at local exchanges. As we saw for the second year in a row, Norway is the only country who outperforms on the local side compared to international exchanges who normally has a very strong presence. So we see Norwegians are up at 53% in terms of doing local trades, while Swedes and Danes are approximately at the same level with a little bit above 30%, and Finns are at 40%. The international exchanges, Denmark is leading the way, Sweden in the next matter, and Norway, while the Finns are at approximately the same level as where they are in regards to doing trading at local exchanges. The reason for maybe why Denmark is higher here, we have discussed in previous years also. But the history of that, it hasn't been that many, call it native exchanges, and also lots of traders who has kept their assets there because there has been initiatives taken from the Danish tax administration and the authorities, and in some matters sending out letters and maybe scaring people to go out on native exchanges, because then they believe they will reveal their data to the authorities immediately, while not understanding that actually also, like we heard from the Norwegian broadcast today, that we have Kaupr and other international reporting frameworks that will lead to the same thing. But that's at least one of the explanations why Denmark might be that high in giving you the overview. When it comes to the ETPs, the ETFs, the exchange traded products and funds, there we see that I would say naturally Sweden is leading the way clearly with 23% compared to Norway with only 4%, and Finland with only 1%, while Denmark is at 9%. And the reason is for the tax purposes that we discussed at the Swedish live stream.
And if we look into why and how many people across the Nordic countries that have decided to sell cryptocurrencies, we see some interesting variations where Finland stands out. Roughly 7% of the population in both Norway, Sweden, and Denmark have owned cryptocurrencies in the past, but have since sold. Finland is an outlier here, with 9.2% of the Finnish population having owned crypto in the past, but since sold. In Finland, it's quite remarkable because 9.2% is higher than the current crypto ownership share of 8.2%. So there are currently more Finns who used to own crypto but don't do so anymore than there are Finns who own crypto. We also saw some independent differences in terms of explaining why people had decided to sell cryptocurrencies, with Norway being an outlier. 41% of the respondents in Norway stated that their motivation behind selling crypto was to realize profits. This was not the most commonly stated reason elsewhere in the Nordics. Both in Sweden, Denmark, and Finland, the main reason for selling crypto was because they had lost their belief in crypto. And in Sweden and in Finland, realizing losses ranked second, in sharp contrast to the Norwegian seemingly strong ability to sell crypto at highs. But of course, this question has been asked to a subsample of respondents, and this is more a fun anecdote to share, but interesting nonetheless. If we add together how many people currently own crypto in the various countries and how many have owned crypto in the past in these countries, we see that slightly above 17% of the population in both Norway, Denmark, and Finland has owned crypto in the past and since sold, or currently owns crypto. That means that roughly 17% of the adult population in all of these countries have experience with trading crypto and owning crypto. This figure is even higher in Sweden, with nearly 21% of the population either having owned crypto in the past and since sold, or currently owning crypto. If we convert these percentages into absolute figures, we find that roughly 4.2 million people in the Nordics has crypto experience, which is a very big and substantial number. And then through our wealth estimation approach, we find that Sweden, naturally, due to both its higher relative adoption rate and also due to its higher population, holds the most crypto wealth in the Nordics, estimated to $10.2 billion as of this survey. Other Nordic countries people in the other Nordic countries hold between $4 to $6 billion worth of cryptocurrencies, which pulls the grand total of crypto holdings in the Nordics up to 25.8 billion, roughly 1.1% of the global crypto market cap. And here again is our key findings. We estimate that 2.5 million people in the Nordics own crypto. That's 11% of the adult population. Sweden is by far the largest country in terms of current crypto owners, both if we measure it from an absolute inhabitant perspective, but also if we measure it from percentages. Whereas the sentiment has been a bit more lukewarm in the rest of the Nordics, with roughly 10% owning in Norway and Denmark and 8% in Finland. This marks also an increase of 326,000 new crypto owners over the past year. And we have also seen relatively substantial growth in ownership among older adults, which is showing that the previous demographic tendency of crypto owners being young is gradually starting to become less and less of a present feature in the market. Nonetheless, the gender gap remains unchanged. Crypto is far more common to own among men than women. And this gender gap did not move at all compared to last year and remains firm at 23% of the current crypto owners in the Nordics being female crypto owners. So it's still heavily dominated by men. And then the perception around crypto has taken a modest hit over the past year, but 1 in 4 in the Nordics expect to buy crypto within the next 10 years, which could increase Nordic crypto ownership rates to 5.7 million by 2036.
That was our findings, Morten.
Thank you very much, Vetle and Magnus, for this summary and overview of the Nordic findings. And we will now continue directly with the first panel. And you can stay on, Vetle, while we let you come back to a later panel, Magnus. And we will add some people to the stage. Just a minute. Yes, and I've thought that we could move on and see what type of impression and thoughts that you guys in the panel has taken on for you together. And there is also Jonas that I should add to the panel. So I think we are there as we are planning to be. Well, maybe we should then just start with you, Chuck. What is your? Of course, you have a strong position as a crypto exchange in Norway. You have moved to Denmark for the last years. And now there is also the moving into Sweden. So how do you look at these numbers?
Yeah, so the numbers are interesting, especially when you see across the countries. One of the things I'm quite envious is the increase in Sweden. It's no... there's no mistake. It's just the increase itself is impressive. But this survey is showing that even though the growth is slowing down in various countries, like for example Norway, the customers are still there. It's not like everybody's moving. So if there's one thing, especially when it comes to Norway, I'm proud of, is that people take profits and not join down the whole train that everybody else has been, because I've been on that train for many years, but I'm still a strong believer. So it's at least fun that people are honest about it.
And then maybe you, Jakob, you are the Nordic organization in this regard, and you have recently had an election in Denmark, and you also then utilized the opportunity related to this survey also to get some awareness among politicians. And has that worked?
Well, I think first of all, there's a very clear correlation here. We did our conference 2 years ago in Denmark, and that was 50% increase last year. We did it in Sweden last year, and now it's 100%. Now, a little bit joke aside, I think the awareness is extremely important. And from a public elected perspective here in Denmark, it has been a mayhem. So right now it's asymmetric taxation, which you basically are going to end up in a really bad situation. Then the rumors was there's going to be tax on unrealized gains and losses as well. So from a political point of view, like taxation and owning crypto have just been extremely bad. So I'm actually extremely happy that we still see positive numbers in Denmark. But the election, prior to the election, we did a crypto list. So we mapped out all public elected who have done positive initiative towards crypto. We asked people to sign up, and post-election, we had parties that signed up got 12 more mandates. Parties that didn't sign up actually lost a lot of mandates. So we actually think that the thing's actually gonna change now. But I just say it again from a Danish point of view, having growth in a taxation situation that's unclear, I think that's extremely impressive. So I'm quite positive for the Danish side. I'm pretty sure we're going to pick it up as soon as taxation is fixed.
Maybe to you, Torbjørn, Norway has sort of been the lead of the pack. Why not this year? What has gone wrong, if there is anything?
Now, I'm just struggling to believe the Swedish numbers. No, so I think obviously if you are kind of growing early, you're taking like the most likely and convert them early, and it becomes harder and harder to convert the next ones. So that could explain, together with the market sentiment, I mean, this is also something we see globally, the plateauing in Norway, and the difference is not very big from last year. The massive spike in Sweden, personally, I'm struggling to understand kind of truly what's driving that, because obviously the crypto market is the same all over the world and should also be the same in Sweden. There hasn't been any changes to the tax rules. Spot cryptocurrency in Sweden is very difficult. The ETFs have been very popular because they are possible to keep in the ISK, but that's been the same over a long time. So definitely, Sweden has done something right. I'm not in the Swedish market, like we're listed in Sweden. I have a lot of connections in Sweden, but I haven't been able to kind of truly understand something, truly explaining like such a big leap, other than maybe some skew in the data last year, underestimating, and maybe potentially some skew with some overestimation. But with such a big gap, it's very hard to also, it would be very unlikely that it would not be a real growth where others have seen decline. So I don't have hopefully there's some Swedes here that can shed some more color on what's happened on the Swedish side, because I think the Norwegian side is exactly as anticipated.
Okay. I think that we could then hear from Christer, because CoinMotion is a Finnish company but are moving into Sweden, and you have been also doing some surveys on both countries. So do you believe the numbers?
Yeah, thanks for having me again. And I agree that the numbers is quite big, but actually we did a measurement in November last year, and we saw some quite much bigger numbers in our survey than the survey that you did last year. So it might be that last year's was a little bit undervalued. But we can see that market is going quite good. I think what I take from this is also that we have some quite big market leaders in each country. We have Firi in Norway, that is really impressive. CoinMotion in Finland. If I remember correct, it was Coinbase in Denmark that was the biggest one, and we have Avanza in Sweden that is really big, and that is a little bit different compared to your numbers. So you can see that Avanza is the absolute biggest player in Sweden. So the ETPs is doing really great, and I think Virtuon have done a great work spreading the word here. And as I mentioned the other day, I think that is the gateway into crypto in Sweden. But it's 4 different countries with 4 different markets. One interesting thing in Sweden from our survey is that 63% of all the ones that are saving in some way in Sweden can't name a marketplace for trading crypto. So there are still even more opportunities here in the market. The same number in Finland is 54%. But for me, as a representative for CoinMotion in Sweden, I'm really excited to see the huge growth. And it's no coincidence to see so many players going in now in the Swedish market. And we have been lagging for a while, and we are in the forefront when it comes to AI and tech. We have Spotify, Klarna, Lovable, and so forth. So I'm really glad to see that we finally catch up. And behavior change take time. But now we have like stable coins, real world assets, Bitcoin reserves in the United States. So I think it's awesome. And time flies. Imagine that it was 3.5 years ago since ChatGPT entered the market, and it feels like 1 year ago. So it will take time before people adopt, but I'm really glad to see the huge improvement in the Swedish market.
Then we also have Jonas from Kvarn on the panel, and the numbers have shown a steep decline in Finland. And do you believe the numbers?
Yeah, of course, I believe there is some seasonality on the data. Finland was quite strong last year with Norway, but yeah, I think it's reflective of the sentiment as well. And last year we did have few points from Finland where that we had this big treasury company boom globally as well. We have a lot of listed companies both in Sweden and Norway as well. I think that publicity also helped a little bit, increase the perception of cryptos, most likely indirect ownership, but we don't have any of those in Finland. So we have 0 listed companies in Finland on the treasury side. There is a few new listings on the ETP side, but the ETP market is much bigger in Sweden, right? So I think also part of that adaptation, we are mainly on the spot side of cryptos in Finland, as we saw in the study. And contradictory to Norwegian respondents, we were, realizing the losses, not the profits, right? So that might be some tax optimization, but overall, I think what is a good high level number is the 800,000 users. So half still in cryptos, have been in crypto. So the aggregate number is tells about the potential still in the market. But now the sentiment has been not only in cryptos, but overall in Finland has been quite negative with the economy and so on. So I think it tells about the macroeconomic situation a little bit as well.
And what about you then, Anita? What stands out for you, and do you see the same trends? For instance, you're traveling a lot internationally, and are the Nordics in the same bucket as you see elsewhere?
Yes, good afternoon. Great to be back. Thank you very much. And I feel a bit embarrassed amongst these other panelists here, because they obviously are sitting on top of having a great view over the Nordics. So I'm approaching this from a slightly different perspective. But first of all, in all honesty, I'm very surprised that Denmark, you are not higher. I always thought that Denmark in this being more close geographically to Europe, you would be stronger. So for me, these numbers were a bit surprised in general. But obviously, I'm not expert in any ways, and very interesting numbers nevertheless. Sweden, I would say we hear, and we have been hearing, especially last year, but the past 1.5, 2 years, more hype around the industry within Sweden and within the crypto industry specifically. So on that regard, for me, it's not that surprising that Sweden is sort of leading the charge in this context. In general, I'm going to pick the natural topic for me, which is the numbers of women in Nordic, and that is a big surprise. I was honestly and truly expecting higher numbers, higher percentages from the other Nordic countries. I know Finns, we are not the outspoken, outgoing in the same way that our other Nordic colleagues, but on a fundamental level, I would want to remind here one thing that is, in my opinion, not emphasized often enough. There is a mother, a sister, a wife, a daughter for every man. And we know from all Nordic countries the stories about that which car the husband buys. Well, it's the one that the woman supports. So I'm kind of in the lines that, yes, the female numbers are quite low, slightly growing, but at the same time, these women playing obviously a more and less remarkable role, behind every man. I would want to think that the women are more active, they are more knowledgeable, they are more within the industry than what the actual numbers and sort of them acting, them investing as women directly is showing from these numbers. And then again, another thing that I just want to maybe highlight when we were talking about the local exchanges versus international exchanges and the numbers there, I think those reflect, if we think that the growth, especially the growth is happening in the higher old groups. And then Denmark, for instance, is clearly more supporting the international exchanges compared to Finland, Sweden, and Norway. I would connect the language dot with the age dot, meaning that what an older person used to stocks, for instance, starting to explore the crypto side of things, you might feel more comfortable with being able to do it in your local language, for instance. So that might be something explaining a bit of this, which I've been actually thinking before as well, that for the exchanges, what is the thing? And then obviously 2020 COVID years is pinpointing for me very clearly that when people go online and they have the time spent online, that's where the online education, learning, new adoption starts. So again, education online, information sharing online is very, very important in our industry, in my opinion. And I would think that these numbers actually are supporting that.
I'm just wondering, there has been several words used on different of these results, like the market being more mainstream, and also that the industry has been maturing. So if we take a more of an umbrella view and maybe see it over a couple of years, is that where we are going? And do you share that view that the industry is maturing and that this way of investing is part of a mainstream way of thinking? What do you think about that, Tuk?
Yeah, if you look at on a high level thing, I do believe that the market is moving this direction. in a way, we can only speak about our own numbers, but we actually do see an increase of female joining our platform to invest into cryptocurrencies in a much higher rate than before. It might be a coincidence, but we do believe that as the market matures, more information is out there, and a lot of scientific research has been done that women are, in a way, much more careful when they invest in money, and they want to know what they're actually investing in and using all that information to do these type of things. But yeah, on a general market, I think well, we have not focused on building a platform for only men or for female. We basically want to build it for everybody. So it's difficult for me to sit here and talk about only male or female. So, but I truly believe that if you build a service that's actually helping the customers invest in the cryptocurrencies and also help them with everything around it, it will actually, in a way, automatically attract all types of users, not only young people or old people or how would I say it? People around my age, like between 30 and 40. So in a way, I think it's all about perception. But one thing I really want to see, for myself at least, is more people across all ages actually embody cryptocurrencies and at least look at this technology, what it actually can help you, because that's something since I've grown up, has not yet been given by traditional finance. So in a way, cryptocurrencies are unleashing a lot more than just investing.
Christer, you have some thoughts about the drivers of investing in crypto in Sweden?
Yeah, and first I want to second what Tuk said regarding women in crypto. We also have a mission in Sweden. We want to have crypto available for everyone, and I think it's great with Anita. The industry needs more crypto grannies. I think you're doing a great job, and listened to you yesterday also. So thanks for participating. But the drivers in Sweden, also in Finland, we can talk about blockchain, tokenization, predictive markets, and so forth. But the biggest driver is people actually want to earn money. So half of the Swedes and 62% of the Finnish say that they just want to earn money, and they are also in it for the long term and also want to have a diversified portfolio. Only a couple of percent say that they are investing because the monetary system is broken or is a hedge against inflation. So I think that is quite interesting. But the thing is, we are all selling the same product. We are selling them in different ways. And it's the same with like Heinz tomato ketchup. You can buy quite expensive tomato ketchup at 7-Eleven, or you can go to the biggest supermarkets and buy it more cheap. So I think CoinMotion and our friends in the industry, we try to make the investments taste a little bit better. And I think it's important also to educate people to get into this. I think that is one of the biggest barriers that we see in our surveys. So if we can inform everyone about the benefits in investing in crypto, and we can also see that there is a demand for fast-moving 24/7 digital money and assets. I think we can win a lot by that. We have seen some people leave this industry, and I think it's understandable that many people have taken some huge losses. Expect for Norway, really impressive. But when Bitcoin hits 100 again, I think people will realize that this ketchup wasn't that bad after all, and maybe we'll come back into the industry.
Dennis Torbjörn.
Yes, so your question was, is the industry maturing and is it mainstream? And I think the answer is yes and yes. Just looking at the different providers represented here, it's very fascinating to me to see that you have us in K33 that are catering to private investors and businesses, and we can find a viable niche there. Then you have like Kvarn offering securities, bringing that together with crypto assets, Firi and CoinMotion, with different services. So we're not only selling Heinz ketchup, we're selling way more differentiated products. And the market, this is a sign of market maturity. It used to be a one-size-fits-all. It used to be, well, you had to go to local Bitcoins and then you could go to Mt. Gox. We all know how Mt. Gox went belly up. This is a way more mature industry. And on the mainstreamness, I see it every day. Yesterday or the day before, I had conversations with a Swedish company that is doing kind of leasing of lifts and other kind of machinery. That is also now preparing and building up a Bitcoin balance sheet. And they're going to do that both as a hedge on what they believe is the inflation to come, but also use it as collateral and borrow money for future purchases and combine the cash flow from the operational business with Bitcoin as a hard asset. When you have that from such a traditional player, and in our case, we can offer both the loan and exchange service, that tells me that this has really kind of spread out. The knowledge is out there. It's not evenly distributed. Not everyone has been convinced, and not all the use cases have been brought to market. But with around 10% ownership in terms of numbers, kind of given the size of what's being owned, but also the diversity of service providers, specialization. This is quickly becoming both a mature and mainstream industry.
We are lacking time soon because we should start also the other panel, but I will ask 2 or 3 questions to Jakob. Christer said that this is about investing, it is about money, while you are organizing a blockchain organization, are trying to get to show utilities on other areas, and even took maybe asked about it. Are there 2 different things, the investment part and the blockchain part?
In simple terms, yes, right? Like if you simplify it, it's liquidity going into companies, right? That should be used. There's the trading aspect, but that's the capital needed to build something. I think if we just pause, like we're looking at more ownership of crypto versus stocks. I think that's impressive. But for the youth and the younger generation, that means that we are at par with normal investments. And if we pause that then and say, okay, what have we actually seen of use cases right now? I think like stablecoin might be the first like ChatGPT that was for AI. But if you look at like the real usage, I think this is now we're going to see all the interesting things. We do activities with the United Nations. Like we hosted a conference with 300 people in October, where you're talking about cross-border transactions. You're talking about supply chains. You got Maersk working on it. Like I think there's so many utilities that haven't been fully developed right now. A lot of utilities are based on consumer things, let's say NFTs or something in the metaverse. But now we're seeing and going into the age of industrial and industry uses of blockchain. And I think when that comes out in the open and people get understanding what it can be used for, then I think obviously the numbers will grow. And there is a lot of utilities now coming out. And again, regulatory pushes are always good. We have seen how that is, I think, done with Micah, what that have done in our region. But it doesn't need to have crypto or blockchain in the wording. But from an EU level, we're going to have a digital business wallet, digital identity, digital product passport. There's so many digital things. There's a lot of digital agents. They, of course, need an infrastructure and they need liquidity, or they need something to basically buy and sell things. So I think within the next couple of years, we're really going to see the real usage of it. And I think that would do a lot towards the ownership, because then a lot more people will actually see the benefit and be more than just an investment.
Then to Jonas, I understand that you guys are also working on different platforms, trying to offer both stocks and other types of investments in addition to crypto. Is that the way going forward, that crypto is not a silo anymore?
Yeah, we think so, and we do have a live, traditional stocks and ETFs and other financial instruments in the platform as well. And basically how we see the market, of course, in the Nordics, we are a little bit isolated, as a region when it comes to the adaptation, even though the aggregate numbers still, show that there will be this almost 6 million users within the next 10 years, which is still, that's unchanged basically compared to last year, give or take. And we saw a aggregate growth of plus 300,000 users last year. Variation between country, but still the trend is strong. But if you think about the US market, for instance, of course, which we all look for the West, that what happens there once the innovation is now unleashed, the situation is completely different, the mainstreamness there. Consider that in the Nordics, all the banks would be promoting the ETFs. Nordnet Avanza would be promoting like Robinhood and these platforms like Coinbase. Everything is already integrated there, and now that the innovation and the momentum is strong there, you see that basically all the platforms from TradFi, online brokerage, and from the crypto side, they are migrating together, and you can basically shop around whatever you like in the single platforms. Now, of course, big trends like prediction markets, everyone has those already, but I think we will see that trend is coming to the Nordics as well, but we are lacking that kind of a development still, maybe 1 or 2 years, and then not all the innovation will happen here because in essence we are quite digital. We have good payment system compared to the even Central European countries and so on, but still people are looking from the crypto side still, as Christer said, mainly from the investment point of view. So we believe in those investment trends happening here eventually as well.
Then sort of a reply from Christer, because I sort of mentioned this blockchain versus investment as maybe conflicting. Maybe you didn't mean that, Christer.
Yeah, exactly. So I agree with Jakob. It's two different wings. We have like the Bitcoin as a currency and a store of value, and then we have the technique, and it's equivalent with like email. You send the email, but you don't know about EMAP, POP3, and SMTP. So I think it's more in that sense. And as this is a retail survey, I was more telling you the numbers that we receive from this survey based on what the retail thinks is the biggest drivers. And the total is actually 85% when it comes to all the things that are connected to making money in this survey. So in this discussion, it's quite much, and I just want to lift that one forward.
Just the last one to you, as I've said before, you are Norwegian, you have been in Denmark for several years, you are moving into Sweden. Do these exchanges, do your offerings, do your way of doing business, can we have some value to export outside of the Nordics, or even maybe collaborate even better across the countries?
So I think one of the most valuable thing you have from the Nordics is trust. We have a highly technical area, region that have embraced technology and at a much faster pace than most countries in Europe. And in a sense, I truly believe that the trust that the region and what we as a industry are building together is going to be key if we want to be able to export anything outside our region. Because one of the reasons why I'm saying this is, if you were to go into Europe now, in Norway, we fight in Norwegian pairs. If you go into Europe, you have a lot of the global players playing with euros, even though most are talking about the USDC as a stable coin, but there's still a lot of exchanges doing in euros. So at this second you move outside of your comfort zone, as we did when we went from Norway to Denmark, you're going to be playing on another level, another type of playing field. And that only means that the only thing that you can have as a company in a mode, if everybody's doing the same thing as in buying and selling cryptocurrencies, it's all about trust. So in a sense, that's probably one of the biggest modes any Nordic company will have, also not only outside of the Nordics, but also inside the Nordics.
Then perhaps maybe you, Anita, could give us an inspiration regarding how to build that trust, or how to build it, or knowledge for that matter, if you are able to do it a little short.
Happy to. And I kind of have the recipe there, but it's in a tiny mode. So Christer, Crypto Granny, was born in 2018 of the need of someone having the face and language of the commoner, someone who is able to convert the tech talk and all these shortenings we are spreading around in this panel even to something people can understand. And yes, the Nordics, we are very trusting people, and trust is something that is built in us. And I'm always bragging that, for instance, the Finns, that's what we are known for. When Finns shakes hands and agrees on something, that's a binding agreement. And that's the way we are. Now we are talking of blockchain technology, which as a technology itself is a trusted, tool enabling things. So how to combine these? So transforming the language to someone that everyone can understand what we are talking about, not how it works. Bring the trust element to something more tangible. And obviously, yes, of course, we all want to make money here. But at the same time, how to make us to understand the wider advantage that this technology is providing and sort of enabling at this moment, and have the tangible, real use cases out there answering this big question that is very, very simple in the end of the day. Why? Why should I invest? Why should I buy? Why should I be part of this? Why? If we are able to answer these why questions in a very easy way, it starts to tick a lot of boxes. But mainstream, no, I don't think we are there yet, but it can be built from all these elements. And what I would wish to see, that the Nordics within this industry, in this case, we actually would be able to work together and jointly, as the Nordics start to conquer the world, because we are against really big players, as you all know better than me. Now, why to go individually, Sweden, Finland, Norway, Denmark, instead of as Nordic force that could be a game changer? Because after all, we can choose a joint currency. Just pick any of them. Maybe the most trusted or used in Nordics, Bitcoin. I don't know.
Thank you very much, Anita, and thank you all guys in the panel. And there was some inspirational thoughts there. And we will now add some new people to the panel. And I'm sorry that we have been delayed here. There has been so much good conversations. And I'm not quite sure. Do I have everybody now, Magnus? Could you just double check for me? Graham, there he is. Yes, welcome. And as I understand, some of you guys have other appointments after some time. And the topic of this panel is sort of rebuilding digital finance. I mean, we can now think a little outside of the retail token crypto box and talk more about the industry. And maybe we could start with you, Hanna. You are an investor, and you have been the last weeks, for instance, been on Swedish FinTech Week, and you have been on the Blockchain Sweden Industry Report. Where do you see this industry go?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here, and thank you so much for putting this excellent week together and interesting findings from the report. So just to explain where I'm coming from, history in the very much traditional finance space, got quite disillusioned by fintech, as I saw a lot was merely nice application on top of legacy technology. So very little had shifted in the tech stack, which still meant T+3, expensive fees, etc., etc. And from my point of view, I see obviously blockchain and digital finance as a game changer for the industry. It's kind of the digitalization or technology shift that needs to happen in the industry overall. But then on top of it, it's also an industry that needs to follow the rest of the world, right? And if we're taking then, for example, agentic AI, which is flavor of the month, with regards to meeting payments, etc., there's just a new technology that is required, right? We just can't continue to operate the maglev trains on old tracks, so to speak. So for what I am looking is very much investing in the space between traditional finance and bridging into the new digital financial rails. Because there are still a number of developments that needs to happen, i.e. we do have a regulatory framework now, which obviously requires additional AML KYC. We're talking about e-identity, wallet structures, and all those picks and shovels, if you like. So that's kind of where I'm operating.
What about you, Graham? You have been working in Google. Now you have created a company within the stablecoin space, as I understand it, and you are right now living in Sweden. So how is your view of this world?
Yeah, I mean, I essentially have operated in technology over the last 20 years around the sort of changes that technology has sort of changed people and the way that people have adopted the technology because of the sort of catalyst phase. And so I think, you know, we sort of really were stuck in a Web 1 era from the sort of the late 70s all the way through to mid 90s. And it took HTML to really get people to actually use the internet beyond just sort of sending each other messages and Usenet news groups and things like that. And what it led to was Google and Amazon. And so we needed to have pictures and images and buttons to make the internet useful. And then in Web 2, it's similar. To get the next billion people using the internet, you needed to give people a way of getting online without them thinking about dialing up on the internet. And that's what mobile phones did. The smartphone gave people the internet without them having to think about connecting to the internet. And it led to all the apps and the app era. And that's what drove the Web 2 era of the adoption of the internet and got the next couple of billion. And so in Web 3 now, we've had Bitcoin and Ethereum and blockchains and lots of really powerful protocols. But really, at the end of the day, it hasn't catalyzed for mass adoption yet. And what we've gone through in the paper today is very exciting, shows the sort of rate where sort of the Nordics is evolving, which is a very advanced financial ecosystem. But ultimately, it's stable coins that will be the mass adoption mechanism for blockchain technology. And they're just like HTML. They're just like the smartphone. They're the reason that people will adopt this technology in a mass way. And then there'll be essentially you'll have users adopting stable coins for instance, as a way of operating their treasury or their interest on their bank account. And they'll actually be earning that interest from the growth of Bitcoin because people are borrowing against their Bitcoin positions. They're paying interest in stable coins. And so in a way, what ends up happening is you own and use stable coins. You don't really think about them any different as just a form of digital money. And you even earn interest and you're earning yield from people who are speculating on Bitcoin. And you have really no idea that that's what's happening under the hood. So I think, stable coins are the major unlock for the next 5 to 10 years of this ecosystem. And, that's coming from the perspective of a technologist who's been working in this from Google to a SaaS company that I built and sold to the next era now. So that's what I'm super excited about. I think this research shows that direction.
Then to you, Tero, you are representing Paxos, which was earlier, at least in Finland, a local company, as I understand, which was bought by Paxos. And you guys then launched a euro stablecoin. And we had the panel before today, which said that stablecoin will be 99% USD dominated, also going forward. How is your view of what is happening in the States versus Europe and the Nordics?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll just very quickly introduce my company. Paxos is a US-based company. We were started about 10 years ago, and our customer base is the large financial sector enterprises. Our let's say the basic principle of our company is regulation first. So we have always worked on the regulated side of the business. There's about 300 of us in total, and 25 of them roughly in Europe. So I couldn't agree more about stablecoins. So we have focus in two areas. One is regulated digital assets, mostly stablecoins, and then secondly, infrastructure solutions like crypto brokerages, stablecoin payments, and so on. So if we take first a look at what is happening in the US, there's kind of two reasons why we should look at US first. Financial innovation usually starts from the US, and Europe comes later on. There's a number of reasons but let's set them aside for now. But essentially, stable coins and the whole blockchain world or digital assets are the hot topic in US. Every company, every financial sector customer, every bank, every fintech, every broker, every trader is looking into stable coins, crypto trading, or crypto stablecoin payments, one way or another. Currently, the game is in USD stablecoins. It is basically most of the usage of stablecoins. I think about 80 to 90% is US dollar stablecoins, and we see that being the case for some time. There's a number of reasons for that. Number one, US dollar is the reserve currency of the world. We can say it that way. And also, even though the local currencies are used in the brokerages and trading locally, essentially the USD pairs are biggest. In Europe, for example, we can say that the USD pairs generally have 4 times more liquidity than, for example, Euro pairs. As a rule of thumb. So essentially, US, based on the regulations and what's been happening there, is moving fast and adopting stable coins and let's say the blockchain world fast. What I see in Europe is that Europe is, in this sense, coming behind. However, Europe is waking up. So essentially, the difference between US and Europe at the moment is more that in US, the product market fit and the companies are looking at crypto trading. In Europe, it's more stablecoin payments that is the focus of the customers and customer base. And essentially how I see this playing out is that the crypto trading and brokerages will stay the biggest use case for stablecoins. However, stablecoin payments are coming fast. If I take a quick look at the Nordics, stablecoin payments here are not the big thing yet. There's a number of reasons, again, for that. I'll just mention one thing on the payments. In Nordics, we are a bit spoiled on the service we have on our instant payments. For example, every country has a functioning instant payment system. Then again, in Scandinavia and Nordics, we have 5 countries, 5 different currencies. For local currencies, the kronas are fairly small in the grand scheme of things. So cross-border on them is fairly small. However, what we can see now that the banks and financial institutions and also the fintechs have been here for a while, but now the fintechs and banks are also waking up. However, they still don't know what to do on this in this space at the moment.
Then to you, Andreas, ETFs or ETPs, which is the European way of defining regulated products, is very high volumes in Sweden, and you are building your business out of Sweden. I have been on several of your events, and for instance, in Oslo, I was at an event with 250 people. I didn't know any of them because there were people in private banking in Nordnet or Avanza or something. So are you targeting a totally different type of audience, and are you doing the entrance into crypto easy because the products are regulated?
We think so. And first of all, thank you so much for having me today. I think that's sort of the core of our mission as an asset manager, to make crypto easy, accessible, transparent, and secure. And going back to Vetle's and Magnus' report, it was great reading it. I actually read it the first time this morning. We actually, because I listened in on the previous panel, we actually believe the Swedish numbers, and we think they might be a little bit on the downside even, because we had, looking last year, obviously the crypto market didn't develop as we hoped price-wise, but we had actually had our strongest year last year with over 2 billion Swedish crowns in net inflows, adding roughly 60,000 new investors, and a majority of that was in Sweden, actually. We also see tremendous growth in Finland, Norway, and Denmark, and Germany and Poland as well. So I think, just underlying, coming back to the report again, I think the key issue, the most interesting part for me reading the report was actually the growth in the age group 40 to 49, 50 to 65. If you look at they more than doubled over 2 years. And I think the major reason for that, just coming back to the questions discussed earlier, as we see during last year, the development of stablecoins and the developments within tokenization of real-world assets, being it stocks, being it real estate, being it private equity, is for the first time, it's easy, very easy for a normal investor, being it retail investor or institutional, to actually understand what blockchain and what crypto can solve. So we see in Sweden a broadening of distribution. When we started this company 3 years ago, we weren't even allowed into the major banks. They wouldn't even take our calls. Now we have ongoing discussions, and our products are pretty much available through a majority of distribution, not only Avanza and Nordnet. And I think the main reason is that everyone now sees the benefits, the cost savings, the efficientness of what stablecoins represents. So yeah, it's our sort of main mission is to build for sort of first-time investors that haven't invested in crypto before, not crypto natives maybe, but long-term investors that see crypto exposure as part of a long-term, well-balanced portfolio. And obviously, we think, obviously biased, but we think the ETP structure is very well suited for that.
I just wanted to ask you, Vetle, you have been focusing on the retail part and also then ownership of crypto assets, but also expanded somewhat regarding ETFs and also then on stablecoins as a usage. At the same time, the ETFs are growing. You also have the Bitcoin treasury companies that offer the possibility to buy a regular stock. Then we are perhaps also moving towards a tokenization of real-world assets being more mainstream or more accessible. Does this represent a challenge or an opportunity regarding getting insights from the market?
Well, first and foremost, we do to some extent cover usage of like tokenized real-world assets through subsections of the questions asked. What we have found is that very few individuals use tokenized assets as of now, but that also makes sense because a lot of the institutional initiatives over the past year is not focused on, call it the retail persona, which is far more likely to respond to this survey than the institutional clients. This is not a survey that directly targets institutional people. So it makes sense that the response rate on people using tokenized assets is very low in this survey, but it will surely grow in the future as people are gradually getting access to more tokenized investment alternatives and become accustomed to using crypto and blockchains as a whole. So I think the market will evolve from just simple buying and selling of cryptocurrencies into a more bridged version of the current market, where the traditional markets offer crypto solutions, and crypto technology enables more efficient trading in traditional asset classes. So I think that's something that we will see with time. In terms of treasury companies, it's something we could cover in where people trade. What is interesting from the survey is that also a data point that not too many people have looked upon afterwards is that what we have identified is that more young adults in Norway, Sweden, and Denmark owns crypto than stocks. It is a very fascinating trend. Direct crypto investment is more common than direct stock investment. There are probably some insights to be gathered in terms of if people have invested in treasury companies in addition to other crypto assets, and something we can include next year. But I think mainly the most interesting angle with treasury companies is what we have examined over time here in Norway with the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund, which over time has amassed quite a substantial indirect Bitcoin exposure through being exposed to strategy, being exposed to Coinbase and other major companies. So NBIM currently owns 9,500 Bitcoins indirectly through strategy. And these treasury companies represent an option to invest in cryptocurrencies through a system that is not forcing call it investment firms to end or make changes to their mandate. It's accessible through the same kind of structure as any other investment.
I was wondering, Magnus, maybe independent of this survey as such, where is the industry heading? And maybe it's not anymore one industry, if you understand what I mean, because when we are discussing blockchain, we are discussing supply chain, we are discussing maybe building for good. When we are discussing payments, we are experiencing that MasterCard and Visa is moving quickly into the space, and then maybe competing with VIPs and of the world, of the Nordics. And on the investment side, we have another type of expansion and merging. So are we really seeing the rebuilding of the finance with different types of solutions?
Absolutely, as we heard from several of the panelists here, but also over the whole week, we see a tremendous of a momentum right now on the back end side of different financial actors' infrastructure. It's like you say, everything from the large third-party intermediaries like MasterCard or Visa, but also on the Nordic banking side. As they're waking up and they see they are using the mechanism of things. But I think in general that we will see, call it the opposite way of the mantra here. Not like when is the use case for mainstream adoption of going to the store and buy bread, milk, butter with Bitcoin in itself. It's rather the opposite side where the banks needs to build, call it the trust momentum surrounding this one in a safe environment. They will rather start with their own tokenized bank deposits, for that matter's sake, to have it in their ecosystem. That's much safer. Then my prediction is that they will move in the opposite direction, like we heard here. They will move it further to then using stablecoins issued by private issued parties, and so on. Then the next move is down to institutional investors, and so on. So I think we will see, call it the adoption hitting the opposite way compared to where we draw up or where the media in general has drawn up the attention. So we see it from the survey now also that, private consumers, they tend to prefer to actually keep their crypto assets at a centralized exchange. They give that trust away to centralized parties. It's not about the anarchistic momentum of keeping this one in your own pocket. That's a totally different discussion. But we see the majority of people, according to the surveys, actually preferring that one. And I think we could put that one into, call it the context of where we will move forward. But my prediction, as said, will be that there are de facto lots of things happening now on the back end side, but these things will happen, call it more a little bit in the quietness compared to that you will see it directly out on the street. And also where we see it from the Nordic side, where everything from the banking side are hosting specific roundtables on this one, just like we have talked about in Sweden, but also like where the Norwegian Central Bank is having an invite-only roundtable on stablecoins now on the 20th of April. That says something about, call it, the momentum that is much more in this one compared to what you read and hear about in, call it, the average daily media and news bulletins. But it's the total momentum of that. The tokenized railways for sure will be a part of the mechanisms of the future of finance.
I was wondering, Hanna, you have been working on investment and also talked to banks and traditional finance for many years. How are they thinking that they have to look into this, or are they not reading anything or moving anything in this? Is it on AI only, or don't they understand that AI and stablecoin and blockchain perhaps can be a solution, for instance?
Yeah, no, I think they very much woken up to the fact it's no longer, this is not for us. It's like, okay, what do we do? But I think it's a combination of AI and also obviously data. They sit on an enormous amount of data. They don't want to give the data up, but they also want to receive data. So these are things. But let me also answer the question slightly differently. And to Vetle's point, right, what is the younger generation doing? And it's very interesting that you noted that they are large in crypto adoption and perhaps start trading less of the stocks. And we know that the public market is shrinking. So what tokenization effectively allows us to do, right, is having a digital representation of all these various assets, which is quite remarkable because it opens up for a true democratization as well of the industry, right? There's plenty of assets out there today that actually is just if you're deemed a professional investor, ultra high net worth individual can access, for example, private equity or VC, or for that matter, real estate, etc. So with tokenization and allowing for fractionalization, we're going to have a very much more open market, which is quite exciting. And this also puts pressure, right, on traditional asset managers. So I think there are plenty of opportunities. And then Tero, just to your point, you mentioned that a lot of the innovation is happening in the US and Europe follows. That's absolutely true. But I do like to point out, having spent 10 years in Asia as well, and much of that in around Hong Kong and China, that a lot of actually the true innovation here is driven very much bottom up from emerging markets. And that is kind of a bit of a problem in our corner of the world, right? That we have had in Sweden, Bank ID and Swish. So we're quite happy as consumers, right? It kind of works. So there's a lack of that immediate need that perhaps other jurisdictions, for example, when you have very high inflation, etc. And to that point, like with stable coins, I'm a firm believer that we will see stable coins, CBDCs, and tokenized bank deposits coexist for a time. Because there's obviously also a mega geopolitical play going on, right? Given that we have the dollarization or de-dollarization or whatever you're driving towards, right? So all these things I think play into also how traditional finance acts and think about these things. And also most of the Nordic countries have an oligopoly of banks, right? There are, for example, 4 large banks in Sweden, and there's no secret that they own Bank ID, they started Swish, right? So the incentive for them to move very fast here is not great. Nevertheless, they have woken up to that they will have to. So they are moving.
To you, Andreas, sort of ETPs and ETFs is sort of known as wrapped crypto in any way. You're offering it as a regulated product. But we have also seen that ETP providers or ETF providers have also moved into vault services. We have also seen that maybe you can also then tokenize an ETF or an ETP. So will these industries also then merge?
I think it's extremely fast moving for the moment. But looking at what we do, I mean, we back our ETPs 100% physically at all times and keep them with our custodian Coinbase. But going back to your question, I think that tokenized assets, tokenized stocks, tokenized certificates is something that's coming. It's coming soon. I mean, you're looking at the US, both NASDAQ and NYSE has actually already applied for tokenized stock trading, which means that it's going to happen here sooner or later. We will, in the future, I don't know when, you will have 24 hours a day trading on regulated products as well, not only spot crypto. Obviously, we're here you look at Stockholm, obviously we're listed on NASDAQ Stockholm and NASDAQ Helsinki here in the Nordics. We are actually pushing them. We want extended trading hours as of now for our products. But that will happen in the future. So you will see a merge. And the underlying theme for that, looking at, for example, one where we see most inflows at the moment is, for example, our Ethereum ETP or Solana ETP. Because how do you get, as a retail investor, how do you get exposure to what the other panelists are doing, for example, in the stablecoin development? Well, you can buy a Circle stock, perhaps you can buy a Coinbase stock, or you could buy the railway where it's actually built on. 53% of all stablecoins issued is based, as of today, at least on Ethereum, for example. But you will see, coming back to your question, you will see a merge between the two worlds, sort of where the technology that is being developed at a rapid pace will be the underlying infrastructure. Just as we saw going back to the IT boom, I mean, you saw internet being built, you saw companies like Cisco, they actually built the railway of internet. And that's exactly, I think, what you're seeing now when it comes to tokenization of assets, which obviously technically stablecoin is a tokenized fiat currency.
Tero, in Norway we have DNB, which is checking out both tokenized assets. They are also talking to Norges Bank about the future CDBCs. They are not participating in any consortium on stablecoins yet, but they say that you have to think about payments and investments together, because also in the investment space, the future of money will be stablecoins or something like that.
Yeah,
Are you agree?
This is totally correct, and then the situation is so that we see, for example, Robinhood launching tokenized funds in the US. We can see in Dubai, the land registry is basically tokenizing their real estate, and we have DNB in Norway taking strides on this. So that's the future, and that's one of the key use cases for stablecoins, because if you have a tokenized asset, whatever it is, you cannot use fiat. Fiat moves the next day, and you have a tokenized asset is in your in custody right now. So that is one of the key places where stablecoins will be used. The key thing here will be to either solve the friction of fiat of on-ramps or off-ramps, meaning fiat to stablecoins, or then build the whole ecosystem in on-chain. Essentially, if you are trying to, always you introduce friction when you are moving fiat money on-chain and then back. And essentially, if you have the full value chain tokenized and on-chain, there's the real possibility for these players here, and the key there will be stable coins one way or another.
Graham, maybe just last questions in this panel discussion. When we are reading also the news, there seem to be people waiting for MiCA to be implemented. And when it comes to the US, they have launched one law, but people are still waiting for this Clarity Act. And many people in the market see it as a potential kickoff for a new bull market. Do you agree?
I think the regulatory landscape is, it's clarifying. I mean, we've made progress over the last couple of years than where we were before. I think the US stance has been to make it very clear about what the rules are and what they, really what it, very, very simple set of rules around the Genius Act in terms of stablecoins must be backed by US Treasuries or cash, and they're not going to do a CBDC, which means they're not going to compete with the innovative free market of how stablecoins will be created in America. Where America sort of stumbled a bit on their regulation is around the Clarity Act in terms of decisions over whether retail investors or retail stablecoin holders should just be able to earn the percentage of the treasury yield streamed from the reserves all the way through to the stablecoin holders. That's been a very controversial debate, and it was more down to the fact that the banks are really fighting against that. It's very disruptive to the banking system. Now, MiCA, which was ahead of Genius and Clarity, has got its own challenges with the country by country interpretation. And the biggest challenge that we're seeing across the European Union with MiCA is just that each country has got their own sort of e-money services and various different financial regulations that are sort of conflicting with some of the sort of broader MiCA rules. So that just causes confusion. I mean, at the end of the day, my world and Brava Finance, we focus on private wealth investors and where essentially those investors are sort of more free to make financial decisions because they're considered professional investors. And I think, there's a lot of opportunity to innovate around that area for the time being while we get more clarification on the details around retail. But I'm optimistic. I think innovation prevails. I think the right intentions are here in the European Union to make the right decisions. But they're not going to happen on their own. We need to keep pushing as an industry to make sure we see progress in innovation first progress. And then UK, on the other hand, is kind of a little bit stuck as an island, metaphorically and actually. And the UK is, I think, making some sort of broad brush decisions around limits, like £20,000 max deposit per individual is the max amount you're allowed to have in stablecoins. I think these sort of rules are just very bad ideas and not innovation friendly and not good for the user, and will just lead people to work around the rules and end up in more trouble, more risk than if they did a better job with the regulation.
Thank you very much for this panel to participate in this discussion. And as you guys know, that the base of things are insight. So it's much easier to discuss opportunities when you have some insights to navigate from. So we also thanks, of course, the partners and the companies that have been behind this crypto adoption survey, as well as the Crypto Adoption Week. I will then just wrap it up. But you are still there, Magnus?
I'm still here, Morten.
Yes, and this has been the Crypto Adoption Week in the Nordics, but there will also be crypto adoption live events in the Baltics after the Eastern. Tell us something more about that.
Yes, as we mentioned in the Norwegian live stream, for the ones who follow that, we are going to carry out this survey, or we have actually carried out the survey, but presenting the numbers from Latvia, Lithuania, and also Estonia, because of the connection into the Nordic ecosystem and where Nordic and Baltic merges more and more together. So next week, it is the Unblock conference in Riga in Latvia, where there are lots of interesting players from the traditional financial world that we talked about, combining it with the great stakeholders from the industry. I have the great pleasure of opening the whole conference by presenting some of the main findings from Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, while also comparing them to the data that we have just gone through here. So it will be interesting to see if we will find any discrepancies towards it or similar patterns in some matter. However, this will only be for the ones who is live at the conference. The following week, from the 7th to 9th of April, we, together with Kaupr and you, Morten, we will have online live streams just the way we did it this week. So you can follow it day by day, all the Baltic countries as well, and where we will summarize the whole thing with a comparison, just like we did today. But if you're interested to going to Riga and not spending Easter in a mountain cabin, then you're more than welcome to join me. You can scan the QR code here and get some discount on the tickets. I also, as a presenter there, have a couple of free tickets. So if anyone wants to go, feel free to reach out to me and we will be able to get you on. Lots of great setups of side events to other stuff that is happening there. So highly recommended it in some matter. So we are excited to be working together with all other associations. They're also from the Nordic Blockchain Association side, and hope to see that we will have even stronger data points to measure an indication towards an angle of where we are heading, at least, even though it's not science. So I think, like we heard this week, that we can at least see pointers, and the important thing is to have consistency in the data. And also, like we heard from the tax administration in the Norwegian broadcast, that data matches towards them. So I think we are at least being able to point out patterns and not only having a crystal ball with a finger in the air, but that it's helping everything from governments to consumers to actually the TradFi side of how to build further in the merge between the pure crypto side and then seeing it to the tokenization side like we talked about now, and how it will be integrated into various different variations in the existing economy and ecosystem of businesses in general.
Yes, and then it's time to wrap up. Vetle from Case 33, he said that tomorrow they will launch all the reports accessible on their website, case33.com. That will be then all the data points that has been shared during this week. On the Kaupr landing page, under the menu, which is under the event main menu, you can find both all the recordings, you can find articles about the different findings, and we will also there upload the reports. So it's possible to dig into this insight and take it into your discussion together with people in the fintech industry, within the crypto industry, and also with traditional finance. So we thanks a lot for participating and being following us, and we'll wish you a great end of the week.